black males do.
If they shoot us, and
they ain't doing it like black. They ain't doing it like black males do.
if they shoot us and we shoot us, then that's controlling the population. If they've got guns, then we've got guns. Regardless of somebody about to take one to the head. Nah. Another young king is dead from the palm. And say he shot him cause he fled. Nah. They're going to be alright. Don't cry, mama.
I never thought the phrase history repeats itself was that deep. Until they hung a nigga last week. I'll be back in the street active. You rather believe we can have peace. American pie. You rather believe we can have peace. Now I'm off that. American dreaming was never real. That open and never sealed. You see, they criticize happening. So if it ain't a black man next, they can never kneel. They criticize us for feeling shit they can never feel. And act like they never steal. Fighting fire with fire, or fighting the virus with hot water and lemon pills. Shit is crazy. The mind is a weapon, tired and stressing. So how I'm fighting police when I'm busy fighting depression? Every fight with aggression. How we not on a pedestal? I put not getting shot by a cop on my schedule. It's crazy.
If they shoot us and we shoot us, then that's controlling the population. If they've got guns and we've got guns, God just saw somebody about to take one to the head. Nah. Another young king is dead from the trauma. Them say they shot him cause he fled. Nah. They going to be alright. Don't cry, mama. Don't you know how I feel when your people just try to live and the police be trying to kill anything black in their way? And don't you know how I feel when they shoot me like Bradley Bill and you do what you gotta do to keep some food on your plate? So I say, don't tell me and my people how we should react. When you ain't got my life experience, it's hard to be black. Being born off the rip, you got a target on your back. So I don't care if niggas burning down the target where you at. Racism is still alive, America is alive. My niggas get criticized for living inside the lives that they gave to us. Don't do a thing for us. Then when anything go wrong, they place the blame on us. Imagine getting pulled over thinking this could be my last breath. They be acting like racism was in the past. Meanwhile, we tired of the life of being fair. Ain't no freedom showing feelings if we might as well be dead. Black. If they shoot us and we shoot us, then that's controlling the population. If they've got guns and we've got guns, God just saw somebody about to take one to the head. Nah. Another young king is dead from the trauma. Them say them shot him cause he fled. Nah. They want to be alright. Oh my mama. Don't you know?
No justice, no peace. You want peace, we need justice. That's why them young boys in these streets like fuck this. Enough is enough. We gon' bring this shit to an end. You're lucky we just want justice and not revenge. You motherfuckers pretend you ain't killing us. Now it's time for you to deal with this anger you instilled in us. No, it ain't no chilling us. We tried that. I just shed a tear instead of prayer. When George Floyd died at, with niggas who gon' ride that fuck running your mouth. They just shot Breonna Taylor dead in the house. We ain't even talk about how they did little Elijah. So I don't give a fuck if your precinct is on fire. My niggas getting tired of just marching. We've been doing that since the 60s. All respect to mine, but the revolution is started. We woke up for the dream. Now it's Malcolm time. We gon' get justice by any means.
Let's go. If they shoot us, we shoot us, then that's controlling the population. If they've got guns, then we've got guns. God just saw somebody about to take one to the head. Nah. Another young king is dead from the trauma. Them say them shot him cause he fled. Nah. They going to be alright. Don't cry, mama. Don't you know?
Good morning. Good morning. Cymarshall Show, episode 36. I'm feeling good this morning. Feeling vital, you know what I'm saying? We're going to get into another joint before we start off. Say their names. Cymarshall. Come on.
Sometimes it's hard to believe the type of world I am in. The world is a musician playing to satisfy land. Cause we get pulled back every time the people try to win. Turn the TV on and across the country is rioting. Cause they're killing us in every way from A to Z. Plus they don't want us to take a stand and be forsaken me. Built to be strong, but when things are wrong, it's breaking me. Babies born in a crisis, this is not what they came to see. Sometimes I think, bro, we came fast and Jim Crow. For some of us, it's been so, but races still think slow. And you only hearing about the most extreme cases, but there's levels when we going through this on a daily basis. And the next day at work, how we gotta act is fine. When brothers out here being murdered and being black's a crime. Hard to listen to, some numb to the pain, but I won't let you forget we're gonna say their names. Come on, Sandra Bland better say her name. And yo, Rakia Boy better say her name. Come on, Breonna Taylor better say her name. Come on, Trayvon Martin better say his name. Come on, Tony McCain better say his name. Come on, Alton Sterling better say his name. And yo, Philando Castile better say his name. And yo, his name is George Floyd, you better say his name. Come on. Watch your back as you black, cause this land, man, we under attack. It's bigger than rap. Trying to pray again? This is reality. I'm not trying to make a friend. I got 3 sons, sometimes I don't know what to say to them. Imagine withholding the oxygen a man needs while he's gasping for air and he's telling you he can't breathe. Now we pursuing fights for human rights, for some more outraged than animal abuse than human life. And I just want to know peace. But black men are more than twice as likely to get killed by the police. Are you part of the problem or part of the answer? Cause I'm tired of seeing us getting murdered on camera. I was 15, cops pinned me to the ground, shotgun pointed at me. Mistaken identity, now a terrible memory. They tried to steal all the dreams that this kid got. I came home that day, this is for others that did not. Freddie Brady better say his name, come on. Walter Scott, you better say his name, come on. Jamar Clark better say his name, come on. And Eric Garner better say his name, come on. And Terrence Pritchard better say his name, come on. And Walter Scott better say his name, come on. Atiana Jefferson, say her name, come on. Amon Aubrey better say his name, come on. My daughter is a princess, to make her a queen is my mission to protect her at all costs, cause you're killing black women too. Protect her emotions, her mental state and her physical, it's critical. And this is for every individual. Trust not just for us, other races are hitting you. Catch your quiet, it's violence and your silence, it's racism too. Something that close to the situation, you know that's far. Hit me the day you check your racist ass crap on. We all get to go on with another life form. But look her in the eye and tell that Tamir Rice mom. Cause in their present state, they won't hesitate to harm. We pray, we march, now we gotta educate and arm. From now on, gotta look in your heart and inside your brain. What you gonna do so all these people didn't die in vain? The pain will remain, but tomorrow can't be the same. So again and again, I'm gonna make you say their names. Come on. Michael Brown, you better say his name. Come on. And Eric Harris better say his name. Come on. Oscar Grant better say his name. Come on. Samir Rice better say his name. Come on. Jerry McDoyle better say his name. And yo, Sam DeCosta better say that name. Come on. LaQuan McDonald better say that name. And yo, Puffy and Billy better say that name. Come on. Yeah, I apologize that I'm not gonna be able to name everybody that died to the hands of racism. But just know, you will not be forgotten. We're gonna keep saying your name until a change comes. Let's go.
Yeah, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Great rising. Good morning. Yeah, my name is Cymarshall. You are now in tune to episode 36 of the Cymarshall Law Show, the race card. It's February 9th, 2021. And I'm in a positive mood. This episode is called the race card. It might get a bit deep in here because the subject matters today, but I want y'all to rock with me. I hope y'all doing good this morning. Hope y'all full of love and positive energy. And if not, I'm going to try to give y'all all the love and positive energy I have in me at 6:09 a.m. this morning. So let's get into it. Morning prayer. Morning prayer to bless you all, bless myself. Let's start off right. Universal gods, most high, great architect, cosmic intelligence, Jah. You go by many names, but we'll go with God. Thank you for allowing us to wake up today full of purpose. Thank you for our inner peace. Thank you for inner happiness. Thank you for our inner love. Thank you for self-love. Thank you for love of others. Thank you for passion, compassion, and empathy. Thank you for a clear mind state. Thank you for opportunities. Thank you for the obstacles that make us strong. Thank you for our healthy minds, our healthy brains, our healthy hearts, our healthy livers, lungs, kidneys, intestines, pancreases, colons, healthy everything. God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate it all. Thank you for our friends. Thank you for truth and light within the space of dark. Thank you for honesty. Thank you for being able to be vulnerable and show our true selves to others, knowing that it's okay for us to be ourselves. Thank you for today, God. Thank you for food. I'm feeling kind of hungry this morning. So thank you for food. Anyhow, God, you're the greatest. You've always been the greatest. We love you. We love ourselves. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen. Yeah. So today's show, I wanted to call it the race card because later on we're gonna have Rosa on the show, and she's gonna be talking about the book of the week stamped, which involves some very heavy topics with the brother Jason Reynolds. He put that book out, and we're gonna chop it up about that. And it got me thinking about all the race issues I've went through in my lifetime. It got me thinking about all the races that have their own struggles, and how we're all in a race to, I suppose I want to say we're all in a race to give our own personalities and our own cultures light in the face of everyone trying to get their own culture and personality light. I've been through a lot of racial issues in my lifetime. And some of the worst things I've been through have never ever been caught on camera. And it's like we go through these things on a daily basis, and we always try to tell our stories to people, but it's like unless you're living in our shoes, it's really hard to say. I want to give shout out to the first two songs I played. Matter of fact, this morning, the first one was a Graph song. It was called "Killing Kings," one of the dopest songs about last year and everything that happened. And also the song I played afterwards is called "Say Their Names." It's a song off the Sui Generis album I made with Mudblood, and that song was a really painful song to write. It was actually one of the last songs I made on the album. And all this, during 2020 when I was creating this album, all this was happening. Like George Floyd, died, the whole Breonna Taylor thing, everything was going on. And during the end of the album, I kind of just cracked because I hadn't written a song about it at all. But when I went to go write a song about it, I had to research the name of every person in that song, like literally every death I could find of police brutality. I researched it and I found it in that song. And to be honest with you, by the time I was finished writing that song and I had to name, all the Breonna Taylors, all the Philando Castiles, I was in tears by the time I finished writing that song. While I was recording it, I was in tears, to be honest. And it was just like, before the invention of camera phones and all these cameras, everywhere we look nowadays, there's cameras. Imagine all the victims of police brutality and racism that we'll never ever see. And it got me to thinking that a lot of times when people go through racial issues, they're like in the workplace or they're in places where the cameras are not shown. So the things that we see on TV or when they can't hold it back. Like when Trayvon Martin died, that was all over the news. But imagine how many stories we miss that are not caught on camera. I mean, we see the level 10 out of 10 stories on the news. But imagine all the racial inequities and all the racial issues that go on that are not level 10s. Imagine all the 9s, the 8s, the 7s, the 6s, the 5s that we never ever see because they're not on camera. They just happen in the workplace. As a matter of fact, not only do they happen in the workplace or not only do they happen at school, they happen indirectly. They're systemic. So a lot of times they're not like in your face, like you're a nigger or you're whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? it's these racial things that happen, and it's like you're in a workplace and you see different treatment for this person, a different treatment for that person, but you can't say, oh, that's racism, because they're not doing anything openly racist. But these things happen all the time, every day, and it happens to all races. um you know, I've been treated unfairly, unjustly by my own race before, and it's definitely been because I'm black, because I've definitely been places and seen someone behind the counter treat a white older man in a really smiley good way, and then when I get to the counter, it's, what do you want, sir? So it's like, it's not only like white people being racist to black people. Sometimes it's black people being racist to black people. Sometimes it's, you know, it's Chinese people to black people to Indian people. So it's all across the board. And it's just really confusing to me because, you know, they say kids have all the answers. And when I was a kid, all I can remember thinking is like, why are people racist? Like, weren't we all born from two parents? Don't we all bleed red or blue or whatever it is? But the world is in a crazy ass place. I can't believe there's so many, like America is like divided like 50-50. That means like damn near half of, if it is 50-50, half of America is racist. Like, I understand the country was built on slavery. So everything within this country kind of permeates racism, because if you have a structure, right, and you build it on, let's say I was to build a house, right, and I built this house on a bed of water, or I built this house on something that wasn't solid, I might actually be able to build the house, but eventually that house is going to break down because the foundation is not strong, and whatever's in the foundation is going to bleed through the whole house. So if America was built on top of racism, that means is at the root of America there's racism. That means that racism travels all throughout the tree of America, because the roots have racism in it. It was built on racism. The actual railroads of the country were built by slaves, John Henry and them boys. So it's like, now we're living in the tree of America, but it was built on racism. So now we're on the branches, we're on the leaves of America, and it's not as blatant as when it was the root, because it grew and, you know, it blossomed something more beautiful, but there are still traces of racism all over America, and a lot of times they go unnoticed, but a lot of times they get caught on camera. Like, did y'all actually see this week I saw there's this black, bless her heart, her caretaker. I don't know if she was in a nursing home, or I don't know if she was in a nursing home, or I don't know if she was in these people's houses, but there was this black caretaker, and she was taking care of this older white woman, and the older white woman walked up to this black caretaker who was taking care of her and went, hocked the loogie and spit dead in her face. If you haven't seen the video, YouTube it. I'm sure all you got to YouTube is like black caretaker gets spit in the face, or her face spitting or whatever. And the white woman did this 4 times. 4 times this woman spit in her face. And the black lady who was taking care of her didn't react. Like, she didn't turn around and punch that woman's teeth out. She didn't turn around and punch her eye out like some of us might have. I'm not saying I would have. I'm saying some people with less self-restraint would allow themselves to get spit on, because spit is like is a very, very high form of disrespect. You can slap the shit out someone and it's not going to be the same amount of disrespect as if you spit on them. So this lady didn't just spit on her, and this is the woman taking care of her, the woman washing her ass is who she spit on. And all I could think is that this woman's so damn old. She probably came up in like the 1930s or 1940s where that was okay. And I'm like, yo, who is she staying with? Like, who is her family embarrassed because of her, or is her family rooting her on? And I pray to God that she has some granddaughters or grandsons that were born, I don't know, in the 80s or 70s and don't have that view, because it's people out here wilding. And that woman, I pray to God that she was able to show someone that video, and either that old lady got taken out of that home or something. Because imagine that was you. Imagine someone comes up to your face, I'm talking to you, and spits right all up in your nose. And then you have to go like this. And when you go like this, there's green coming off in your hand. This is in the times of COVID and everything. So she's spitting her phlegm and loogies all over your face, and you're taking care of her. These are the things that, the racial things that usually don't get seen on the camera, and they don't get seen on the camera because nobody died. And it's like only the level 10s get shown on camera on TV, and I just feel that's crazy. So just know that some of your friends, some of your people of color are going through these racial issues, and they're not getting shown on TV, and there are things that we have to bear and carry on our backs and keep on and keep on and keep on and keep on. And if we don't keep on, then we're gonna lose our house, we're gonna lose our car, we're gonna lose everything, because we're going through these things that other people are not exactly going through. It's sometimes your friends, your friends of color, are going through things that you'll never ever understand. They can tell you, or maybe they won't tell you. Maybe you'll just have to see it in their eyes. Maybe everything is energy. And next time you see your friend, your friend of color, and they're acting like nothing is wrong, just know that person is going through things at their job, their school, that sometimes it's too much for us to talk about. It whoops our asses to talk about it and keep on talking about it and keep on talking about it, especially when we talk about it and we say, look, this is happening. And then when you look over there, the person has their hands behind their back, acting like they've done nothing wrong to you. This happens all the time. I was showing my sons the movie Men of Honor the other day, and Men of Honor is with what's that actor's name? Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro, and it's with Cuba Gooding Jr., the actor, and it's about I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it's about a Navy SEAL, the first Black Navy SEAL diver, and Cuba Gooding Jr. was obviously playing the Black Navy SEAL diver, and they were doing everything in their power. This movie must have taken place in the 60s, 50s. They were doing everything in their power to not allow this man to succeed to become the first Black Navy SEAL diver. And the atrocities that they were doing to this man. My sons were watching it with me, and at the time, my son was 12, and he was like, "Yo, Dad, did they really do that? Did they really do that to Black people back in the day?" I had to pause the movie. Like, yo, do you think that's bad? So these things have been going on for years and years and years and years and years and years. And just because something is not a level 10 offense, that doesn't mean the buildup of the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, because it's a buildup of things. Because it's not as if when we come out of our mother's wombs, the world is nice to us. Because I've been going through, the first time I got called a racial slur, I was probably like 5 years old. I remember this shit like it was yesterday. Like, what does a 5-year-old have against you? What do you have against a 5-year-old? So these are just like nasty, vile ass people that I've never been able to understand. And sometimes people, they struggle to admit their racism, because if they admit their racism, they have to admit they're effed up people. And they'll just use everything in the book to act like that's not what's going on. I'll give you a quick example. I bought a house in 2016, and in my house, I have an attic, and deep within that attic, the person who must have owned this house before me, they left letters in there or something, and there must be letters from like the 1970s or something, letters that are highly important to them. So when I first bought this house, the gentleman came to the house, and he was like, I think I left letters in your house. And I just bought the house. So he was like, can I check in your house? And I was like, nah, I'll check for you. So I went upstairs in the attic, couldn't find it. I looked everywhere in the attic, couldn't find this man's letters. So I was like, I don't know, man. Someone who must have lived here before must have taken the letters. Fast forward 4 or 5 years since I've owned this house. I'm in the attic, like putting away Christmas decorations or whatever. And lo and behold, what do I find? All this man's letters. So I like go in Google search or whatever. I find this man. I look this man up. That he lives in Washington D.C. now, and I'm like, sir, I found your letters that from your 1970s or whatever. And he's like, all right, bet. Can you just He doesn't say bet. He's an old. I won't say his race, but he's an old man, and he's not black. He was like, yo, can you just give them to my friend across the street and he'll get them to me. So I took the letters, and it was a big bag of letters, not like 2 letters. It was like probably like 500 letters, like a big ass bag of letters. So I took them to his friend. I found his friend and I took them over there. And when I went over there, I did have my mask on. However, his friend knew that I was coming because he called him. He was like, yo, the guy's going to come to your house and drop these letters off. So I went over there with these letters, with this big ass bag of letters. And the guy looked at me, he opened the door. He looked at me. Matter of fact, he didn't open the door. You know how there's 2 doors, how you have like the screen door and you have the door? So he opened the door, not the screen door. He cracked the door. He looked at me, and I was like, I got the letters. And he just like, was like, he just shooed me away. And I was looking like, I must look like a criminal or something, but I didn't look like a criminal. I was dressed nice that day. But anyhow, so I left the letters on the porch, and it wasn't a big deal, but it sent me away thinking, damn, if I was any other color, would he have opened the door and been smiling in my face? We weren't in like the hood. It wasn't dark outside. And this man shooed me away like I was nothing. And I'm like, now, and that's one of the issues. I mean, that we'll never know if it's like directly because of race, but those type of things happen every day where it's like, yo, is this person treating me differently because my color of skin? And the issue comes in because we don't know. But I tell you what, more than half of them is probably because of the color of your skin. And then people always like to say, oh, don't play the race card. Fam, I can't turn my skin invisible. I'm not playing any card. This is what it is. And, a lot of people don't have to go through these things. And unfortunately, we go through these things every single day. I remember being in like the 9th grade and me going to the bathroom and me coming back from the bathroom, and on my science book, the word nigger being wrote on it. I remember I never found out who did it, I remember looking at every person in my class, every white person, every black person, every Latino person, every Chinese. I didn't care. I was looking at everybody, and everybody looked innocent as hell. And all I could think was, damn, I'm in class, and someone who I thought was my friend, because I was cool with everybody in class, someone who I thought was my friend is clearly racist and plotting behind my back and trying to like kick me down. I one time opened my locker. There was a note that said nigger in there. So these are things that will never make the news. But if they continue to pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up, what happens is that you get into a relationship one day with someone who hasn't walked in your shoes, and you come home from work one day and you've had these issues and you don't feel like saying them because they've been happened to you since you were 5 years old. And it's just like you get into an argument with your partner, and your argument is not even about what you're arguing about because you're so stressed about the shit that's happened to you already that you don't get credit for because it's not on the news because you didn't get shot. Listen, we're going to get into a song because I'm getting annoyed here. Anyhow, I know I'm supposed to be positive, but I suppose, this is a rough topic for your boy because it hits home. So we're going to get into another song, the song of the day. And then halfway through the show, Rosa is going to join, and we're going to talk about her book, Stamped. Cymarshall Law Show, Episode 36. You getting a dose of truth, a dose of reality. The race card. So this next joint is gonna be. You can tell I'm annoyed. I don't even know why I decided to talk about this topic today. Oh man. At least y'all are getting a good show. You're getting some real energy. But you know what? We're still gonna have a good day today. We're gonna step out into the world with love and positive energy. And that's how we're gonna do it. Cymarshall Law Show, episode 36. If you enjoyed the show, click subscribe and keep on keeping on. I'm stalling looking for the song. Now here it is. This joint is called Papoose Tribute.
Amadou Diallo was shot 19 times. The police fired 41 shots combined. Mistaken identity, they had to admit it. When they went to trial, all 4 officers got acquitted. Ahmaud Arbery, his skin made him a target. 2 racist white men shot him while he was jogging. Betty Jones was inside of her house the day after Christmas when shots rang out. A bullet traveled inside of a home and slaughtered her. No charges were filed against the officer. Cornelius Brown, cops chose to kill. They shot him 7 times. He was mentally ill. Dominic Fuller was murdered. The Get Stranger, they say he had a gun. All he had was a stapler. Eric Garner, he was a father, but now a martyr. Ain't deserved to be slaughtered. His last words, I can't breathe. Moment of silence. The officer who killed him didn't even get indicted. Emmett Till, 14 years old. They claim he flirted with a white woman. How cold. They took off his clothes, called him a nigger, lynched him and threw him in the Tallahassee River. Freddie Gray had his spinal cord severed, killed in the police van after arrested. 6 officers got charged. This is ridiculous. 2 years, 4 trials, no convictions. George Floyd, 3 officers nailed on him. He told them he couldn't breathe. They didn't care for him. The country rioting everywhere for him. Fuck those cops. I have no fear for him. Hector Moran, he was unarmed. The cops shot him dead. He cried for his mom. India King, the Navy vet. The passenger in the vehicle was a suspect. A baby in the back seat. The cops started shooting. The officers were cleared of criminal wrongdoing. Jamal Clark, restraint wasn't enough. They shot him in his head while he was in handcuffs. Hal Coppin was mentally ill, but they say he had a gun. All he had was a hairbrush. The cop shot him. A king with the coroner. No charges were filed against the officer. Laquan McDonald was jaywalking. They shot him to the ground. Murdered without a warning. Alleged that he pulled the knife and tried to rush him. The video proved they lied. How disgusting. Mike Brown, the suburbs of Ferguson. Allegedly, a cop drove by. He had words with him. The officer shot him. He did nothing wrong. Why did he have to kill him? The man was unarmed. Nathaniel Pickett, rest heavenly. He was brutally murdered by a sheriff deputy. Oscar Grant, the world knows his name. He was traveling, the cops grabbed him off the train, placed him on his knees, laid him on his chest, then shot him in his back. May he peacefully rest. Philando Castile, traffic stop. He was legally strapped. He informed the cop. The officer got nervous. A murder was committed. Charged with manslaughter, but he got acquitted. Quintonio LeGrand called the cops 3 different times before he got shot. Allegedly, they say he charged at him with a bat. But since he made the call, it's hard to believe that. Rodney King, they beat him with billy clubs. They blame us, but the cops are really thugs. The verdict was not guilty. How shifty. That sparked the worst riot scene since the 60s. Sandra Bland, traffic stop. The racial profile in the bus has to stop. 3 days later, she was hanging in the cell. They ruled it a suicide. The truth shall prevail. Terrence Franklin was cornered in the basement. He tried to surrender, got executed by hatred. The U stands for the unknown, who died by racism. Their faces weren't shown. Victor LaRussa, they thought he had one. But after they killed him, they never found the gun. Walter Scott, the world loves you. The cop said he feared for his life in the scuffle. The video proved he lied, revealed facts. He ran for his life, 8 shots in his back. Xavier Ruby was riding his bike. Point blank range, they shot him and took his life. Why? Yusuf Hawkins was shot down in 1989 by some racist clowns. Tamir Crawford was chased to his death. Rammed into a wall, he took his last breath. Zimmerman, I know you think you got away with it, but everyone has karma, yours gonna be my favorite.
Good morning, Rosa.
Morning. Hi. How's it going?
Right off now, whenever you come on, I'm going to bust this instrumental.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Despite my emotional rant.
Yeah, I was like, should I send him a message in the chat or I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not trying to belittle your what you shared. Like I'm not let me just stop trying to be funny, but I was just like, I just wanted to comment. You were saying something, and then you were like, when people say don't play the race card, right? That pisses me off so much. That makes me so angry, because I feel like that's just the easy kind of like, yeah, don't play the race card, that fits right in there with the whole, let's look at all the commonalities, let's look at the things that we have in common. And I feel like, black people, BIPOC, like, if you don't know, then you just don't know, and you can't say things like that, like, just don't play the race card,
Yeah, I definitely know it's an easy way for people not to deal with the reality of what's really, really going on. It's hurtful because it's like if you don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, you either act like it's not going on, or you know it's going on and you don't care. And people of color go through this all the time. And you know what I don't like? I don't like when someone is talking and then, because they have like a good heart or a good conscience, they always feel like they have to say at their end of the sentence, oh, not all white people are racist, or not all cops are bad. We fucking know that.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
I'm just going to say, just like Jason Reynolds says in this book, take a deep breath, inhale, exhale.
I'm actually in my best states when I'm kind of emotional, because that's when I always say it's on the shows, when I feel the most real, and I don't need any notes when I feel like this, because I'm like, it's all heart. Anyhow.
Yeah, I'm sure the listeners don't know. What was it, episode 3 or 4, where you were like,
I spazzed out?
You were like full on crying. I was like, oh my god, is he okay? Like,
I wasn't full on crying. I just was
no, I'm
they gonna go look at the episode that don't exist.
You were just emotional and passionate, sure. And that's all good. Nothing wrong with that. I was just like, whoa, the blind side.
Yeah, that's what some people don't even know how to express that part of them, because they feel ashamed of themselves. They don't want to, be honest. And I think that goes into what we're kind of talking about with the whole racism thing. People don't want to be honest. Like, they'd rather not deal with the shit.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was listening to you, and I was thinking about the few meltdowns that I've had this year, like as a teacher and stuff, just around these kinds of issues. And so I was kind of like, yo, let's not have a meltdown on the show.
I don't mind being honest, because people are just not honest. Like, I'm not afraid to show my true self. That shit is corny. because I feel like when you don't show your true self, that's when your problems start. That's when you start getting depressed or anxious because you don't get a chance to show who you really are and you keep hiding that shit. And like I would say a majority of the world hides what they're really going through. They fucking go on social media and act like everything is honky-dory all the time. But it's not. We go through these things every day and people just want to show the best parts of themselves. But nah, yo. And that's what I mean. Like I was listening to what you said it was saying earlier. I was interested. You were saying I don't want to belittle you, but yo, it's so important because there's so many small things and it's a pile up of these things. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And it's like, because they're a straw, people say, oh, you know, you're going through a little thing and it's okay, just brush it. But these straws build up. And just because I'm not Trayvon Martin and I haven't fucking died, it's like, I don't know. Shit is crazy out here. But after all, I'm still positive. I'm still here. I still feel purposeful. I feel vital. I love your sweatshirt, by the way.
Yeah, it's I just wanna it's education, it's an education apparel company. It actually says teacher with sneakers. You can't see it.
Oh, that's even hotter.
Yeah, so it's
Better have some fresh kicks on. Don't have no socks with holes in it on.
So it's Prince very sharp. Prince Rhythm Company on Instagram. Hit them up. They've got like some like faith kind of stuff, like spiritual gear, and then they've got like educational apparel. I mean, I love, you know, the other day I was wearing Teach, Hustle, Inspire. I mean, these, you know, these are educators who are out there. They're American companies, you know. I just love supporting these like educators who are just, you know, these movements where they're out there, they're trying to, you know, make a change, you know, positive changes, just not only in the local community, but in the education world. So I follow a lot of these amazing teachers who are just doing their thing, you know, despite COVID, despite, you know, racial injustices and, you know, all of that. There's some amazing people out there that you know, that inspire me so much, because, you know, when I'm having a really crappy day and then I think about my friends who are teachers in the US and just what they're going through, I'm like, yo, maybe I need to just maybe I need to get a grip of,
I bet there can be a whole entire movie on teachers and what they're going through. I feel like they're underrepresented on what's going on right now, because I rarely hear about the struggle teachers are going through, and I know they're going through it. I think they have to be. Yeah. But I don't see no Netflix documentaries on that shit.
Yeah.
There needs to be. That's a lane for somebody.
Hard out. Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'll just share the book, and then, I mean, please feel free to jump in and speak, as, you know, I can get carried away. So you gotta be quick, you know, you gotta bust in real quick and be like, yo, pause.
No, I got you. A shout out to Amelia, watching from, or Amelia and Almeka watching from Mali, West Africa.
Yeah, that's my friend Almeka. She used to be in Japan. She's in Mali doing her thing. Thanks, fam. Thank you everyone for coming through, supporting the brother, supporting me. Like, I really appreciate it. Like, man, you know.
Dope. All right, okay. You got it.
So, hi everyone. Our book for this week is Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. And this is actually the young readers version, young people's version. They call it like the remix. You know, it's a remix of, ta-da, this book, which is stamped from the beginning. And it's written by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. And so he writes this one. This is the young people's version, adults version. But basically, just to give you a little bit of background, I mean, these guys, you know, they're just amazing, doing amazing things, not just in the world of education, but in the local communities there in the US, you know, anti-racism education, that kind of stuff. Jason Reynolds is one of my favorite authors. And actually, the reason I wanted to discuss this book is because I read so many books last year, and this was number one. It dropped in March, and I was telling people, read this book. It's so good. You know, it's nonfiction, and you know, I'm not really a fan of nonfiction. You know, like I'll read memoirs and stuff. This book is a whole nother level. Like it's pretty special. So this is my favorite book of the year. Kendi is also, they're both New York Times best-selling authors. Jason Reynolds, actually, this guy's a historian. So he's a historian, he's a professor. And Jason Reynolds writes fiction, like he writes novels for young people, middle school audiences. He is a poet, amazing poet. Yeah. And like this is so, like, I just want to say quickly before I get into the book, like I was so hardcore, like loving these books last year. Like in October they had this whole month webinar every Thursday, 3 a.m. Tokyo time. I was up watching these guys talk about these books, like talking about this book. And like I would be like going to school like a few hours later, just totally hyped about learning, about education, about anti-racism education. Like the things that they discuss in here are so inspirational, you know, and it's really a call to action. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's just rewind back.
Interesting. That webinar sounds like a hell of an experience. I wish.
Oh my God, it was amazing. It was in conjunction with Loyalty Bookstores. So look up, it's a Black-owned bookshop. I don't know if it was in Brooklyn, maybe. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Actual physical store as well.
Yeah, but it was just, there's just something about listening to the authors, right? When you listen to writers talk about, you know, the process behind, you know, the finished product, it's amazing. Right. So this book here, this uses the lives of 5 eminent American intellectuals and to teach us about assimilationists, segregationalists, racists, and anti-racists. Okay, so there are people in here. So the 5 people that it's focused on is Cotton, what's his name? Cotton Mather, he was a what do you call it? He was a Puritan minister. Thomas Jefferson, abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison, W.B. Du Bois, and legendary activist Angela Davis. So those are the kind of the 5 people that are discussed in this book. But then this book, there's like a lot. Yeah, I mean, it talks about the first racist, but I won't get into that. But there is just so much more in this book, and it like opens up this whole world of history for young people. Like it's super engaging. Anyways, let me just go back to this because I mentioned segregationalists, assimilationists, and I talked about anti-racists. So Reynolds, he basically breaks it down like this. Segregationists, you can call them, they're like the haters. You know, they're like the haters in society, and they hate you because you are not like them. And then we have the assimilationists, and he calls them the likers. Okay, and so they're like the fake friends, they're the phonies, they only like you because you're like them. And then we have the anti-racists, who are the lovers. You know, they're your day ones, they're your ride or die, and they love you for who you are, and not not for who you are to them. So it's like when he breaks it down like that, it's how can young people not understand that, right? It's just the way he.
I saved the book. You got one sold over here.
I mean, it's like, okay, honestly, this. Anyways, Kendi basically says like he wishes that when he was growing up, he had a book like this, right? Teaching him about American history. He wishes that they had a young people's version for when he was growing up, because, you know, like history books don't give students like a deep enough, perspective or account of who people were in American history, and or what they did, right? And like, you know, if there are any historians in the house, my apologies, but I'm just gonna say, like, I think we can all agree that history books are boring. Like, seriously, yeah, sure. They're like, you know, they're written by white old men, middle-aged men who, you know, their narrative is the DC perspective, DC being dominant culture, you know, the colonialist perspective. And so, you know, when I was growing up and we were learning about American history in our school, we only learned about like Martin Luther King, you know, like Rosa Parks, just like Malcolm X, just main two, right?
I gave my 19-year-old, I let him read Malcolm X when he was 12, and he didn't want to read it. He doesn't even read like that. But I wanted to get ahead of the situation and give him some information he might not be getting in school. So he read the book, but I always was thinking maybe that was too deep for him at the time. And now I have a 14-year-old, and he's like, you know, I want to read that Malcolm X book, my second son. But I'm going to try to give him Stamped instead, because
You need to give him this book, man. I'm telling you.
It's more like what his level should be, and it address. It's for more of a young people. Is what I hear you saying.
Okay, but can I just say, because you said something there, you were like, maybe it's more his level. Here's the thing, right? So, you know, this book, obviously there are really complex issues around racist ideas in this book, but the cool thing is that Jason Reynolds doesn't water it down. Like, he's not watering down anything, you know, for young people. It's just the way that he is telling, you know, it's the way that he is telling and writing the story. It's the words that he's using. It's the way that the book is written. It's the way that they're written on the pages, the words. It's the way that, you know, like some chapters are short, you know, the chapters are not so long. Just the whole layout of the book keeps the reader engaged. I read this first before this because, well, hello, this is way smaller. My attention span is like this when it comes to history books. But when I read this, like, I'm a skim reader. I didn't skim read once. Like, I was super engaged from page to page. And, you know, there's all this like deep information, you know, all these names in history that I had heard about, but I kind of couldn't really make the connection. You know, he mentions people in modern America, like Black heroes, like of now, and I was just like, what? You know, I was just kind of like, it was mind-blowing, the things that he talks about. But Kendi, I just wanted to say before that Kendi, you know, he says that it's important that people are honest about Black heroes. That sometimes, you know, like, he's basically saying, because I read some reviews where people are like, yo, was he calling out, you know, was he calling out Du Bois? You know, people were like questioning, was he calling him out, you know, in the book and whatnot? Why was he doing that? But Kendi's basically just saying, you know, you have to be real, you know, like real talk. You know, it's important to be honest about Black heroes because, you know, it's not taking away anything that they've done. It's not taking away the contributions that they've given or making them less powerful. It's just that you want to show that people's ideas, you know, around race can change, and that you can always kind of look back and reflect on where they began, you know. And so it's highlighted like right throughout the book. But so he you know, he makes that clear. But as I said, this is a nonfiction text, and you know, it's written in a way that young people understand. Like, Reynolds rewrote this book from top to bottom, and he said that he put himself in the shoes of a 16-year-old and asked himself, what do you want to learn from this book? So, you know, because
Rosa, is it a completely different book, or like has he changed? Like, so when you say rewritten, like rewritten in a way where like he doesn't use as many big words, or just like it's the same story though, right? Is that what you're saying?
Same story. It's the way, it's the words and phrases that he is using, so that it's not dumbed down, if that's what you're asking. It's not watered down. The content, like the, you know, in regards to the racist ideas, it's not dumbed down. It's just the way that he tells it, and the pauses throughout the book gives young people time to process. So if we, you know, what we know about history books, it's like this whole big like, oh my God, are we there yet? Are we there yet? You know, whereas right throughout this book, the whole, it's like, even down to the font, you know, the bold part, italics, he does recaps of the previous chapter, and it's just real short and sweet, but it's like the information is like real deep, but it's not dumbed down, it's not watered down at all, but it's just the way he tells it so that students, young people can understand. Like when you listen to the audiobook, you'll understand. Because I actually read the book first. I read the ebook and then I read the book. I read the ebook, but the ebook didn't really, I wanted to know what people were talking about in terms of like the font and stuff like that. So then I read the book, and then I want to read this part, right? So there's this part where he talks about white privilege. I don't know if you can see this. So when I talk about the font changes, it's like that. Like there are important parts throughout the book where the font is a lot bigger. I don't know if you can see. I don't know. Anyways, so he says here, he's telling the story. He's talking about white privilege, and then he says, "Time for a breath break. Everyone inhale, hold it, exhale, and breathe it out. Privilege." And then the way he says it, the way it's written, it's like privilege across the page. And then he asks like rhetorical questions. Still here? Good. Let's move on. So white privileges were created. And so it's like constantly throughout the book, like he's engaging the reader, these small utterances, these pauses in the story. It just keeps you hanging on like every time. And in that sense, he's such a talented like narrator and storyteller. So when you're reading this, like he continues to say, he says this is a nonfiction book, but it's not a history book. He reminds you right throughout the book, but remember, this is not a history book, but it is a history book. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so him instructing the readers to pause and to digest, about white privilege. It really kind of gives you a moment to kind of sit back and go, okay, white privilege. Wait. Okay, I think I've heard about that before, and then he continues explaining it, but it's not dumbed down at all. It's not watered down, and I think a lot of history books do that, especially when we're talking about American history. And I'm just speaking from an outsider's perspective, by the way. No offense to anyone, but they tend to dumb down things, or they only tend to show the good parts, the good people, the good role models, the good black heroes of not the good, like the more well-known black heroes of American like history, black history. The one thing that's really cool about this as well is that he is giving young people the vocabulary. Because I'm a language teacher as well. And so this is not just talking about the history of racist ideas in America. It's not just about the first guy that was considered the first racist. Like he's actually equipping young people with vocabulary to be able to speak about and understand racism. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
So he's giving young people the ability to name what they see. Like, and when I talk about young people, like he's specifically like black, young black people, giving them the ability to name what they see on a daily basis, what they experience, and what they should be resisting against, So he's connecting with, the readers and the listeners through the audiobook, and he's just being, he's being honest. He's bringing them into these complex topics as opposed to just trying to water everything down and say, oh, by the way, did you know this? Like he's saying to the young readers, hey, you have a place at this table. You have a right to discuss these issues without adults kind of standing around you and kind of dictating. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense. It's awesome. I think he has young readers' attentions, because you had asked me if any of my kids had heard of him, and one of my kids did say they did hear of him. So, and I when I was reading his website, it looked like this brother wrote his first book in 2014. So his rise has been like pretty quickly. So he's obviously like super talented, because it's only 6 years since then.
Yeah, and he's like an ambassador for like a library. I can't remember the name. but he's all for the children. And he always talks about, obviously he's for all children, but he is always, because he's a black man and he is speaking to black children. He wants to connect with them the most. They are most at risk. So the other thing is, I mentioned before, equipping young people with the vocabulary to be able to discuss these complex issues. But even, he's a poet. So he uses metaphors, he uses similes, in the book. And so in that way, that's another way to connect. It's the educator part of him, because I think he used to be a teacher until he took on writing full time, and he talks about, phrases, everyday expressions and phrases that are used against black people, negative connotations, and stuff like that. So it's definitely, the power of language is something important in this book. The power, the pervasive power of language, the ways that words and phrases associate blackness with negativity is, this is what he's trying to get through, And then, of course, when we think about systemic roots and like institutions and things like that, everything from social to, economics to education, the workforce, the roots of racism within those organizations and institutions, you can trace it right back. You can trace it right back, like 500 years before. Any thoughts?
For me, no, you kind of did an excellent review. That was very full, and you sold me on the book. I'm definitely going to buy it for my children. I'm probably going to buy the adult version for myself and my mother.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I mean, it's not, like adults can read this too. I mean, I read this and I was like, yo, like I've mentioned before, I love history, and it was just like
Did
when
you
I
read
think,
both versions or?
yeah. So, and he's got another book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Maybe that can be something for another time, which is really good. So yeah, Ibram X. Kendi. But when I think about like 5 words to describe this book, like it's energizing, it's fast paced. And when I say energizing and fast paced, I'm referring to not just reading, but then when you listen to the audiobook, like his voice changes, depending on what he's telling. Like, I can't wait to hear what your son has to say or what your children have to say about the book, because it's always cool to hear like what young people have to say. No one wants to hear what adults have to say about the book. We want to hear the young people, we want to hear the young people speak and tell of their experiences. So maybe your son can come on another time and talk about it, So
Yeah, I'm about to buy
yes,
it right now.
okay. So energizing, powerful, fast-paced, brilliant. He's a brilliant writer, and thought-provoking. Yeah. So
Go shout out to Amazon Prime.
don't shout out Amazon Prime. So yeah, the biggest
I don't know.
so the biggest takeaway, sorry fam, I know I get so carried away and super excited about books. I can't help it. So the biggest takeaway from this is this, the roadblock of, these roadblocks that are put in front of us, when we're trying to engage in discourse, around race. It's always the discomfort, that comes to, people talk about, oh, but it's, it's uncomfortable, we can't talk about this because it makes some people uncomfortable. And I think, like now I'm speaking from an education point of view, like an educator's point of view, like, conversations about race and racism, like they're uncomfortable, but as it says in this book and in many of these other amazing books that dropped last year about anti-racism education, we cannot allow discomfort to be a deterrent to this work. You know, like as educators, as teachers of color, like it's been super challenging. You know, just, you know, like, yeah, it's just been like a really challenging few months. And this is just from me over here, but I know that obviously in the States, like a lot of my black educator friends are just, you know, it's not the biz, man. They're going through like real difficult times. And if we don't have these uncomfortable conversations around race, around policies, you know, inclusion policies, language policies, if we cannot have these discussions about race and normalize these discussions about race in our schools, wherever you are in the world, we're of no use to our students, right? Because you cannot stand at the front of your classroom and talk about diversity and talk about, you know, all these education buzzwords, but you're not like taking action. You know, you're not actually trying to become a better educator. You're not trying to become an anti-racist educator. I know I'm getting all serious and stuff. It's just, I'm so passionate about this kind of stuff, and it's just been quite a frustrating few months. Just, you know, yeah. Let me stop.
Hey, get out what you need to. This is a free space.
So I mean, you know, like yeah, I just think, you know, as educators, as teachers, we have to talk about our journey as anti-racist educators first. Like and it shouldn't just be teachers of color or black, you know, BIPOC teachers. It shouldn't be about us sharing our experiences. Like, why do we always have to share our experiences? Like, I don't want to hear people say, oh, you know, oh, poor you. You know, I don't want to hear that. I want people to be like, okay, you know, okay, we've heard your story. Now, this is what I'm going to do to be a better educator, to be a person who is supportive of, you know, the plight of BIPOC educators. And I'm just talking from educator perspective here, right? Because it's been a challenging few months. I've had a few meltdowns. For real, man. You know, the struggle is real, man, I tell you.
I could imagine.
You know, like, you know, it's discussions is not enough. You need to take action. Your students we need to be cultivating brave spaces in the classroom so that our students can share their frustrations. They can talk about how they are feeling about all these issues of social justice. But, you know, I could go on forever. Is it because I teach social justice, so I'm super like, really like, let me stop. I kind of went off topic. Apologies.
All good.
You have to read this, fam. I tell you. Listen to the audiobook. Jason Reynolds is the man. He's written so many great books. All American Boys is another good one. I mean, I could talk about Jason Reynolds forever, but we only have a limited amount of time. And if not, if you want to read this, you know, do it.
That was a great review.
Was it a review? No, it was really just me rambling about Jason Reynolds and Dr. Abram. Yeah. But yeah. Anything? Do you have anything to say? I mean, I said to Sai earlier. I was like, bro, I was super nervous about tonight. Like, I cannot speak about the Black experience because I am not, you know, I'm not trying to say that I know the experience, right? Because we all have different experiences, but you know, look out for your friends, look out for your you know, check on people, ask them how they are, you know, especially your friends of color, your Black friends, just, you know, check up on people, because, you know, during these COVID times, it's, you know, like, people are going through some things, and sometimes, you know, it's hard to kind of reach out. Anyways,
Sure.
do you have the book there for next week?
The book in front of me for next week. What, Harry Belafonte?
Yep.
No, I don't have it. I thought I was supposed to have it when we actually were talking about the book.
Oh my God, can you just like uppercut yourself? Okay, so the book for next week is my song. It's actually Si's choice. It's his. I was like, bro, you gotta choose a book. So he chose My Song by Harry Belafonte. I didn't have a copy, but I am listening to it on Audible. It's pretty good so far. I'm a few chapters in. But he knows the book really well, I can tell.
I do.
So
I
I have
do.
to catch up.
It's a great book. But we'll talk about it next week. But Harry
Yep.
Belafonte was an activist in
Yep.
60s, 70s. He was born in Jamaica. That's why it touched me because my family's Jamaican, and that's a story that doesn't get spoken about at all, really, as much as I would like it to. Experience of the Jamaicans coming to America in that
Mm.
time period. And Harry Belafonte was one of our best. So yeah, I would like to definitely get into that. Harry Belafonte was one of the best friends of Martin Luther King, and he was friends
Sydney
with a lot of
Poitier,
people at
right?
that time. Yeah, Sidney Poitier. So a lot of people in that time. So a lot of the stories in that book, I had never heard before. But
Mm.
Harry Belafonte is definitely one of our finest. So yeah, we'll talk about it next week.
Yep. And just last thing is if you haven't watched Small Axe, have you heard of Small Axe?
I haven't.
Oh my God, dude, you gotta watch it. It's like Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen, he did that movie 12 Years a Slave.
Mhm.
And so Small Axe is a 5 episode. I think it's on Amazon Prime, but if you look up some streaming sites, not promoting any illegal activity, just saying you should be able to find it. But Small Axe, it's an anthology series, and it centers around the West Indian community in London between 1960s and 1980s. You gotta watch it, bro. It's so good, and the music is the bomb. Like
Nice.
so good.
Yeah, it'll resonate because that's where my parents were. They
Yes, that's why I was like, bro, you gotta watch it.
My parents came to England in the 60s. So and they both came from Kingston, Jamaica. So that whatever Small Axe is about, I'm sure it's involving
Bro, it's and there's the last episode is about education. It's deep, man. It's
yeah, I'm
really
gonna watch it.
eye
I'm gonna
opening.
watch it today. Maybe right now.
That's us.
I
Sorry for
appreciate
going on
that.
so long.
No, I appreciate that. You said Small Axe?
Yep.
I'm pretty
Small.
sure I've seen it before. Not saw it, like watched it, but I've saw the words on the screen.
Yeah. It's so for anyone listening, watching, go check out Small X. It's
Thank you.
such a good experience, learning experience.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, gonna continue on with the show. Not too much more, just really the good news of the day and the quote of the day. And then just gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. So yeah, man. The good news of the day that I found was oh, before I get on with it, Rosa, thank you so much for your energy, your perspective, your insight. You are a blessing. I appreciate you, as do everyone watching. Thank you.
All good, bro. All good.
So the good news, I found that a student who made 30 grand from the GameStop debacle donated a lot of his funds to the Children's Hospital. A 20-year-old a Cornell University student donated Nintendo Switch consoles and video games to a Children's Hospital after making nearly 30 grand on the GameStop stock. That's a great thing because he's a young kid, and it's not too often you find young kids that are as giving as that. Like he made all that money off GameStop. So y'all must have heard about everyone making money off the GameStop stock popping. The dude's name is Hunter Khan. He's 20, a Minnesota native. He did announce via Instagram that he donated 6 Nintendo Switches, and he says, as a beneficiary of the recent events of the Wall Street, I think it's important that myself and others pay forward our good fortune. These events have highlighted a lot of corruption And with this transfer of power, it is important that we don't become men in suits ourselves. I am proud to announce my humble donation of 6 Nintendo Switches and games to go to the Children's Hospital of Minnesota. So shout out to Hunter Khan, young brother doing good things with his come up. So yeah, beyond that, we could get into more things, but I don't want to keep you guys. I know you guys have your days to get to, and I have my day to get to. So I want to go ahead and give y'all the quote of the day that I have here. Where art thou? Oh, I closed it out, didn't I? I hope y'all are getting ready to have a beautiful, wonderful Wednesday. I can't believe it's already, what, February 9th? Before we know it, we're going to be March. And then before we know it, we're going to be in December, getting ready for the end of the year again. So I hope you guys have been doing everything that we've always talked about on the show as far as your plans and goals and getting towards, dreams you want to get to and keeping focused on the best things. Anyhow, here we go. Short quote. It goes like this. The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. Albert Einstein. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I read it again. The world is a dangerous place to live, not because the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. My name is Cymarshall. He is Rosa, Reads with Rosa. Thank y'all for joining us on today's episode of the Cymarshall Law Show. I see you guys on Friday. I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, sending you out with lots of positive energy and love. Have a good day, y'all. Peace, love, and positive energy. And we out.